The little girl sat cross-legged on the floor, completely lost in the pages of a book she had pulled from the lowest shelf. Her small fingers traced over the words as her lips moved slightly, whispering each sentence under her breath as though they were a secret meant only for her. Every few seconds she would pause, flipping back a page, rereading a line, soaking in the story like it was something precious. Her mother stood nearby, her purse clutched tightly against her chest, her eyes shifting between the register and her daughter. She had been watching her read for the past 20 minutes, knowing what would come next, dreading it. Finally, she sighed and took a slow step forward. "Sweetheart, it is time to go," she said, her voice soft but firm. The girl did not look up at first. She turned another page, her expression full of wonder, but when she felt her mother's gentle hand on her shoulder, she knew. She closed the book slowly, hesitating before placing it back on the shelf. "Can we get it next time?" she asked, her voice small. Her mother swallowed hard. She had used that excuse before. She had told the same lie so many times that it hurt to hear it again. "We will see," she said, brushing a stray curl behind the girl's ear. The little girl nodded, trying to be brave, trying to pretend she was not disappointed. She glanced back at the book, her fingers twitching as if she wanted to reach for it one last time, just to feel the pages again. But she did not. She simply took her mother's hand, ready to walk away. And then the bell above the bookstore door chimed. A man stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed casually in jeans and a hoodie. He moved easily, his presence effortless, as though he was just another customer. He pulled the hood down, running a hand through his short hair as he glanced around. He was used to people noticing him. It came with who he was, with the life he had built. But at that moment, he was just there for a book, nothing more. As he made his way down the aisle, his gaze landed on the little girl, still standing in front of the shelf. He caught the way she looked at the book she had just put back, how her fingers flexed, like she was trying to hold onto something that was already slipping away. Something about the moment made him pause. He did not know her story. He did not know what she was thinking, but he had seen that look before. The quiet resignation. The understanding, even at such a young age, that sometimes wanting something was not enough. And without thinking, without hesitating, he took a step closer. The little girl had taken a step away from the shelf, but Aaron Rodgers noticed the hesitation in her movements. It was not the kind of hesitation that came from distraction, it was the kind that came from longing, the silent kind that made a person walk away from something they wanted, but knew they could not have. He had seen it before, in kids with big dreams and limited means, in fans who stood in the back of a crowd, hoping for a moment but never pushing forward to ask for it. He slowed his steps, acting like he was just another customer browsing the shelves, but his attention stayed on the girl. Her mother squeezed her hand gently, giving her an encouraging smile that did not quite hide the sadness behind it. They started walking toward the door, moving past him. "Hey," he said, his voice light, casual. "You like that book?" The girl stopped, turning to look up at him. Her eyes flickered with a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. She had heard that voice before somewhere, on television, maybe, or in conversations around her house, but she could not quite place it. She nodded, tucking her hands behind her back. "It is my favorite series," she said softly. Aaron crouched down slightly, bringing himself closer to her level. "That so? What do you like about it?" Her face lit up just a little, the way it had when she had been reading. "I like how the main character never gives up, even when things get really hard," she said. "She always finds a way to fix things, even when nobody believes in her." He smiled at that. "Sounds like a pretty great story." The mother shifted beside them, looking at Aaron more closely now. Recognition flickered in her expression, followed by quiet surprise. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then stopped, watching her daughter instead. The girl nodded. "It is," she said, her voice filled with certainty. Then, just as quickly, her excitement dimmed. "But it is okay. I can read it next time." Aaron glanced at the book on the shelf. "You sure about that?" She hesitated again, but this time she did not have to answer. He reached out, plucked the book from its place, and turned it over in his hands. "Tell you what," he said, glancing between her and her mother. "Why do not you take this one today?" Her eyes widened. "What?" He extended the book toward her, but she did not reach for it. She looked at her mother, uncertain, as if she needed permission. The mother opened her mouth again, her eyes glassy with emotion, but Aaron spoke first. "I think books should be read, not left on shelves," he said, simply. "And I think you are going to do some pretty amazing things one day. Might as well start with this." The girl stared at him, her fingers twitching as if she wanted to take the book, but was still afraid to. And then, slowly, she reached out. The little girl's fingers barely grazed the book's cover before she pulled her hand back, glancing up at her mother again. It was not hesitation out of shyness, it was something deeper, something unspoken. Her mother understood immediately. She knelt down beside her daughter, brushing a gentle hand over her shoulder before meeting Aaron's gaze. "I really appreciate this," she said, her voice quiet but full of emotion. "But we cannot—" Aaron shook his head before she could finish. "You can," he said simply, offering a small smile. "No strings attached. Just a kid who loves books getting to read the one she wants." The mother hesitated. He could see it in her eyes, the weight of whatever struggle she was carrying. It was not just about the book, it was about pride, about not wanting to take something she felt she had not earned. But at the same time, there was something else. A mother's love. The deep, unshakable desire to give her child something that she knew would make her happy. The little girl looked between them, her brow furrowing as she tried to understand the silent conversation happening over her head. Then, slowly, the mother let out a breath and gave the smallest nod. "Go ahead, sweetheart," she murmured. The girl's eyes widened, as if she could not quite believe it was real. Then, with careful, deliberate movements, she reached out again and wrapped her hands around the book, holding it close to her chest like it was the most valuable thing in the world. A grin spread across Aaron's face. "Looks like it found the right owner." The girl beamed up at him, her excitement bubbling over now that she knew it was really hers. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with a kind of joy that was pure and unfiltered. "I will take really good care of it." Aaron nodded. "I have no doubt about that." The mother wiped at the corner of her eye, letting out a soft laugh. "You just made her whole day," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. Aaron shrugged, stuffing his hands into his pockets. "She made mine too." The moment lingered for a second longer, warm and full of something unspoken. Then the little girl opened the book right there in the middle of the store, flipping to the first page as if she could not wait a second longer. And just like that, she was lost in the story again. Aaron watched as the little girl's fingers traced the words on the page, her lips moving slightly as if she was whispering them to herself. She was completely absorbed, the rest of the world fading around her. It was a kind of quiet magicone he had seen before in kids, who found something that truly spoke to them. Her mother did not interrupt, just watched her for a moment, then turned back to Aaron with an expression that was hard to put into words. There was gratitude, yes, but also something deeper. A kind of quiet understanding, the kind that passed between people who recognized an act of kindness for what it truly was, genuine, without expectation. "She has been through a lot," the mother said softly, as if speaking too loudly might pull her daughter out of the moment. "Books are her escape. They are the one thing that makes her forget everything else." Aaron nodded, his gaze flickering back to the girl. "Sounds like she has got the right idea. Stories can take you anywhere." The mother exhaled a small, tired laugh. "Yeah, and sometimes that is exactly what she needs." There was something in the way she said it, something that hinted at struggle, at hardship she was not voicing. Aaron had met enough people to recognize the weight in her tone, the kind of exhaustion that did not just come from a long day, but from life itself. He did not ask. Some things did not need to be said to be understood. Instead, he glanced down at the book in the girl's hands. "You know," he said casually, "I have always believed that people who love books have the biggest imaginations. Maybe one day she will write one herself." The little girl finally looked up, her eyes bright with something new possibility. "You think so?" she asked. Her voice filled with cautious excitement. Aaron grinned. "I know so." The girl turned to her mother, her expression filled with a kind of hope that had not been there before. "Maybe I could write stories," she said thoughtfully. "Ones where people never give up." Her mother reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I think that would be a wonderful idea." Aaron gave her a small nod, like an unspoken promise. And in that moment, he knew that what had just happened was more than giving a girl a book. It was giving her a reason to believe in something bigger herself. The little girl clutched the book tightly, as if afraid it might disappear. Her mother rested a gentle hand on her shoulder, watching her with a softness that spoke louder than words. It was not just about the book, it was about what it meant. Aaron could see the shift in her, the way her posture straightened just slightly, how her eyes carried a spark of something new. It was not just excitement, it was confidence. She glanced back up at him, hesitating for only a second before speaking. "If I write a book one day, would you read it?" Aaron's grin came without hesitation. "I would be first in line," he said. Her smile stretched wide, a quiet kind of joy radiating from her, as if those words had planted something deep inside her, a seed of belief, the kind that could grow into something real. Her mother swallowed hard, her voice thick when she finally spoke. "You have no idea how much this means." Aaron shook his head. "I think I do." The moment lingered, full of something unspoken but deeply understood. Then, the little girl pressed the book to her chest, as if making a silent promise to herself. She was not just holding a book. She was holding a future she had never dared to imagine before. Aaron watched as the little girl flipped through the pages, her excitement bubbling over in the small movements of her fingers. She was no longer just a child holding a book, she was someone who saw new possibilities, who believed in something greater than the moment. And that was what mattered most. Her mother exhaled, her expression still carrying the weight of everything she wanted to say, but could not. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not just for the book. For this." Aaron gave a small nod, understanding exactly what she meant. It was never just about the gesture, it was about what it represented. A reminder that kindness, no matter how simple, had the power to shift something inside a person. It could be the moment that made them believe again. The little girl hugged the book to her chest one last time before looking up. "I will write a story one day," she said with certainty now, "and I will make sure it helps people." Aaron smiled. "Then you have already got the heart of a great writer." As he stepped back, giving them space, he knew this moment would stay with them, just as it would stay with him. Sometimes it was not grand gestures or big moments that left an impact. It was the quiet ones. The ones where a person felt seen, believed in, encouraged. And maybe that was the real lesson, that small kindnesses mattered more than people. Realized that taking a moment to uplift someone could change the course of the story. Because in the end, the most powerful thing a person could give was not money or gifts. It was belief. A belief in someone's dreams, in their potential, in their worth. And that was something everyone had the power to give.